It was cold that morning, the kind of cold that makes your hands feel empty, even when they're full. I stood by the edge of the road, my camera bag over my shoulder, and the sky above Sedona was still dark. The red rocks looked like sleeping giants. The world was quiet, but inside, I was loud. That was the day I turned 17. But no one at home remembered. Not Mom, not Dad, not even my little sister, who always drew me cards when I was younger. I didn't cry. I just walked. 1 mile, then 2. No plan, just away. I reached the edge of town. There was an old bridge, quiet, with wind blowing through dry leaves. I stopped there. I stood for a long time. I looked down at the water. It wasn't deep, but it moved fast. I had one thought in my head, just one. Then a voice behind me said, "That's a good place to take a picture." I turned. It was a man I didn't know. Young, maybe mid-20s. He had paint on his fingers. He smiled like someone who had seen sadness before and knew how to sit beside it without saying much. I didn't answer him. He pointed at the trees and said, "When the light hits, that's when it speaks." Then he walked away. That was the first time I saw him. Liam Parker. He didn't know me, but somehow he saved me, and I never told him. I didn't even know he would be my teacher the next week. I didn't know I would spend the next few months trying not to fall in love with someone I was never supposed to feel anything for. But that morning, he saw me, and that was more than anyone else did. I still remember the sound of the wind, the quiet water, and his words. It was the first time in a long time I didn't feel invisible. That's how my story began. The next Monday, I walked into my art class and stopped at the door. There he was, the man from the bridge. He stood by the whiteboard, writing his name. Mr. Parker. My heart dropped. I sat in the back that day. I didn't want him to see me, but I also didn't want to look away. He wore a gray sweater with a hole near the sleeve. His jeans were covered in paint. His hair was short, but messy, like he never cared how it looked. But his eyes, they were calm, like still water. He smiled at us and said, "This is not a class about lines or colors. This is about seeing. If you can see a thing, really see it, you can draw it." I didn't take notes. I just watched him. When he asked us to draw something from memory, I drew the bridge, the place where I almost gave up. And then I drew him, his back, his hand pointing at the light. I didn't know why I did it. It felt like the right thing to draw. When class ended, I packed up fast. I tried to walk out before he saw me, but as I passed him, he said, "You were there that morning." I stopped. I looked down. Then I nodded. He didn't say more. He just gave me a quiet look. Not shock, not pity, just knowing. That night, I couldn't sleep. My head was full of questions. Why did he come to Sedona? Why was he alone? Why did he look so tired when no one was looking? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out. Something about him felt like a story that hadn't been told yet. And maybe, deep inside, I hoped he would see me again, not just as a student, but as a person. I started to go to class early. I stayed after too, not to talk, just to be near, because for the first time in a long time, I wanted to stay. I started coming to class 10 minutes early. I always sat in the same seat, second row, by the window. From there, I could see the light fall on Mr. Parker's face when he opened the blinds. He never talked much before class. He just set up his things: paint, paper, books. His bag was old and brown, with one torn strap. One morning, he walked past me and stopped. He looked at my notebook. "You draw every day?" he asked. I nodded. "That's good," he said. "It keeps your hands from forgetting how to feel." After that, I started drawing more, in bed, at the bus stop, on the back of receipts. I didn't know what I wanted him to see in my work. Maybe something he would not forget. One day, he asked us to bring one photo that made us feel something. I went home and looked through my old pictures. Most were of rocks, trees, birds. Then I found one. It was me, a mirror shot. You could only see my eyes. I printed it and brought it to class. When Mr. Parker saw it, he held it for a second longer than the others. Then he said, "There's more to this than just a face. There's something inside." My hands felt warm for hours after that. The other students laughed a lot in class. Some made jokes. Some tried to get his attention. But I stayed quiet. I only watched. I wanted to know more about the man who saw things in silence. I started to write about him in my journal. Not love words, just lines like, "Today, he looked tired. Today, he smiled when I walked in. One day, he walked by my desk and said, 'You always sit alone.' I looked up. 'I like quiet,' I said. He didn't ask more. He just nodded, like he understood. That was enough. Each day, I came to class, not to learn art, but to be near something that felt real. Something I didn't have to explain. Something that stayed, even if it didn't speak. It was a cold Friday in January when the class took a trip to Red Rock State Park. The sun was out, but the air felt sharp. We all had our cameras and sketchbooks. I wore my old blue hoodie and kept my hands in my pockets. Mr. Parker walked with us, but stayed near the back. He didn't give big talks. He let us move on our own. I walked to a quiet spot by the river. The water moved slow that day. There were dry trees on both sides. I sat on a rock and started to draw what I saw. Then I heard him. "Still love the quiet?" he asked. I turned. He was standing behind me, holding his sketch pad. "Yes," I said. "It's the only time I feel real." He looked at my sketch. He didn't say good or bad. He just said, "I get that." Then he sat on the rock next to mine. Not too close, just close enough. We didn't speak for a while. The sound of the water was all we needed. Then, soft and low, I said, "My house is loud, but not in a warm way. My mom talks too much. My dad never listens. My little sister just wants to be anywhere but home." He looked at the river. "My home was quiet," he said, "but cold. I still remember how that felt." I looked at him. He didn't say more, but I saw something in his eyes, a shadow, a memory he still held close. And in that moment, something shifted. He wasn't just my teacher anymore. He was a person, a broken one, like me. That day changed something in me. I began to see him not just as someone I liked, but someone I wanted to understand, and maybe someone who could understand me too. It was the first Monday in February. I walked into class like always, but something felt wrong. The room was too quiet. The lights were on, but there was no voice at the front. His name was still on the board, Mr. Parker, but his chair was empty. A woman walked in 5 minutes later. She said, "Mr. Parker had to leave for personal reasons. I'll be your teacher for now." That was it. No other words. No goodbye. Not even a note. I sat still. My hands felt cold. My feet didn't move. I didn't draw that day. I didn't speak either. When the bell rang, I stayed in my seat while the others left. The new teacher looked at me, but she didn't say a thing. I got up and walked to the back of the room. The wall near the windows still had his sketches. I touched one of them, then let my hand fall. I didn't take it. It wasn't mine to keep. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I didn't even turn on the lights in my room. I opened my journal and wrote one line. He left like everyone else. Then I tore out every page I had written about him and put them in a bag. I threw it under my bed. For 2 weeks, I didn't bring my camera anywhere. I skipped art class once. Each time I passed the bridge where we first met, I looked down, but never stopped. It felt like something had opened inside me, and now it was empty. But I didn't cry. I told myself, you don't cry for people who walk away. Still, my heart didn't believe that. I kept seeing him everywhere. In a book I found at the store, in the way a man held his coffee like he did, in a song that played once in class. He was gone, but everything still looked like him. 2 years passed. I finished high school and moved to San Francisco for college. I got into a school with a good art program. It was far from home, but that's what I needed. At first, the city felt too big, too fast. But I liked walking alone down streets full of light and noise. It helped me forget what I left behind. One Saturday, I took my camera and walked toward Mission District. There was a small park with walls full of art, big faces, words and colors, people I didn't know, but somehow understood. That's when I saw him. He stood on a ladder, painting a girl with a book in her hand. He wore a black hoodie, old jeans, and a cap pulled low. But I knew it was him. My legs froze. My chest felt tight. I wanted to turn back, but I didn't. I walked closer. He looked down. We both stopped. He smiled first. "You look different," he said. "So do you," I said. I didn't know what to do or what to say. He stepped down and wiped his hands on a towel. "I paint here on weekends," he said. "Helps me breathe." I nodded. "I study nearby," I said. "I walk here a lot." We stood in silence. Then he pointed at the wall. That's her, from my first class in Sedona. My heart jumped. He remembered. We talked for a bit. Nothing deep, just light words, safe ones. But inside, I wanted to ask everything. Why he left, why he never said goodbye, why it still mattered so much after all this time. I didn't ask. Not yet. He looked at me and said, "Glad you're here, Emily." And just like that, the space between us felt small again. Not gone, but small enough to cross. We started seeing each other more. Sometimes by accident, sometimes not. He painted near the park. I walked by on purpose. One day, he asked if I wanted to help with a piece. I said yes. He gave me a brush and said, "Paint like you feel it, not like you see it." So I did. We worked side by side for an hour. He didn't say much, just smiled when I dropped paint on my shoes. After that day, we met once a week. Coffee, long walks, little talks that meant more than they should. We never called it anything. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it wasn't nothing. One night, we sat on a bench near the water. It was quiet. The moon was low, and the street lights blinked behind the trees. I said, "I waited for a goodbye that never came." He looked down. "I couldn't say it," he said. "I was full of dark things back then. I thought if I stayed, I'd pass them to you." I didn't speak. He looked at me again. "You were light. You were the only thing that felt real." That night, I didn't walk home alone. We walked together, step by step, like the space between us had never happened. We never kissed. Not then, but he held my hand, and it felt like the first page of something I didn't have a name for. The next day, I found myself smiling for no reason. I drank coffee slower. I looked at the sky longer, and I felt okay. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I didn't have to carry the weight alone. It started raining that night. Not hard, just enough to make the street shine. We stood under the small roof outside the cafe, close but not touching. His jacket was wet. My hands were cold. He looked at me and said, "There's something I should tell you." I waited. My last year in Sedona, I was in love with someone. We were together for 2 years. She passed away in a fire. That's why I left. I didn't know what to say. He kept looking ahead. "I came here to forget, but I didn't. I just learned how to carry it." I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. For a long time, we didn't speak. He turned to me and asked, "Why are you still here?" I said, "Because I know what it feels like to lose someone and still wait for them." Then we walked in the rain, slow, without umbrellas. The drops hit our faces. My shoes were soaked, but I didn't care. We passed the old church near Crissy Field. The lights from the windows looked soft and golden. He said, "You always wear that old hoodie." I laughed. "It still fits." He looked at me with tired eyes. "I feel safe when I'm with you," he said. That night, he kissed me. It was quiet, gentle, like something we had both been holding in for too long. And just for that moment, the world stopped spinning. We stood there for a long time, and I remember thinking, maybe it doesn't matter how it ends. Maybe this is enough. If you're listening right now, I hope you're warm. I hope you're safe. If you are, just leave me a 7. It helps me know you're still here. Because sometimes, just knowing someone's there is everything. It was a quiet Sunday morning when I saw the flyer. Student Art Show, Golden Gate Park, this weekend. I sent in one photo, just one. It was a picture I took months ago of a bench under a tree. You could barely see a girl sitting there, head down, camera in her lap. That girl was me. I called it the space he left. The day of the show, I didn't tell him. I didn't want him to come. I wanted it to be mine. But when I walked into the small white tent near the park, he was already there. He stood in front of my photo. His hands were in his pockets. He didn't move. I watched from the side. Then he turned, walked over to a table. He took something from a bag and taped it to the wall next to my photo. It was a sketch. A girl by a river, sketchbook in hand. Her hoodie too big, her eyes looking down. I stepped closer. At the bottom, in small print, were 5 words. This is where I healed. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. I looked at him. He nodded once, then walked away, slow, like he didn't want to break the moment by staying too long. I stood there between the photo and the sketch, and it felt like the past and present had touched for just 1 second. And that was enough. I didn't chase him. I didn't call out. Because sometimes you don't need more words. Sometimes a drawing is louder than a voice. And sometimes, when someone finally sees you the way you see them, you don't hold tighter. You let go, quietly, with love. I finished my 2nd year and got a letter. A full ride to study in Los Angeles. Art and media, my dream school. I packed my room in boxes. I gave away half my books. I kept the sketch he left by my photo. It was small, folded in a thin brown notebook. On my last day in San Francisco, I walked to his street, not to see him, just to leave something. I placed a small photo book in his mailbox. The cover was gray. Inside were 12 photos, one for each month I had lived there. At the end, I wrote a note. Thanks for showing me how to see the world, even in silence. I didn't sign my name. I knew he would know. Then I walked back down the hill. The sun was setting. The air felt soft. I didn't cry. I just felt full. Not heavy, just full. Like the end of a long song. In LA, life moved fast again. I met new people. I painted more. I started to sleep better. But I still thought about him. Not in a way that hurt. In a way that stayed. Sometimes I check his art page online. He posts a new piece every month. A girl with a camera. A blue hoodie. A soft light. I never like the posts. Never leave a word. But I smile. Because I know what they mean. And I think he knows I see them. People come and go. Some stay a while. Some just pass through. But some leave a color on your heart that never fades. He was that color. Now I teach art to little kids in a small school near Echo Park. I tell them what he told me. If you can feel it, you can draw it. And I wait. I wait for the day one of them draws something so honest, so quiet, that I stop and say, "This is where I healed." Some people do not stay. They come, change something in us, and then go. But what they leave behind can last longer than their time beside us. Emily's story is not about a happy ending. It's about a real one. It shows that love does not always need a name or a promise. Sometimes love is quiet. It helps us grow, helps us heal, and then steps back. Mr. Parker never gave her forever, but he gave her something more. He helped her see herself. He showed her that she could feel, create, and rise again. And in return, she gave him something too, a reason to believe in people again, a space to breathe. Their time together was short, but it was deep. Not all stories need to last to be true. Not all feelings need to be loud to be strong. And when someone touches your life with care, even for a moment, that moment can stay with you, soft and full, for years. Some hearts leave no sound when they leave, but you still hear them every time you draw, write, or walk past a place they once stood. Have you ever thought of someone who changed your life, but never stayed? Someone who saw you when no one else did? Maybe you didn't get to say what you felt. Maybe they left before you could ask why. But still, you remember them. Their voice, their smile, the way they made the world feel soft for a little while. Sometimes we meet people for a reason we don't see at first. And when they're gone, we carry the shape of their presence like a shadow behind light. Not heavy, but always there. Maybe right now, you're thinking of someone who made you feel safe or seen or less alone. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone you care about. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe they don't talk about it. Maybe this video is what they need today. Not to fix the pain, but to remind them they're not the only one feeling it. Even if it's just for a smile, or a deep breath, or a reason to pause and remember that some stories don't need big endings, just a heart that listens. They'll thank you for it. Maybe not with words, but with the way they hold on to that small feeling a little longer. If you liked the story, comment number 7. If you think the story could be better, comment number 8. We are always here, working hard to bring you the best stories. Thank you for watching, our dear friends. Your support means everything to us. See you in the next story.